BG, what is happening? The pig is staying in the Queen City. Is staying in the Queen City. We'll get into that in a second, but welcome to the first episode of real regular season basketball for the Charlotte Hornets on Buzz Beat. During the 23-24 season, the Hornets are 1-0, a 116-110 win over the Atlanta Hawks. A lot to unpack here. Very entertaining game, some positives, some negatives, but again, most importantly, BG, and you kind of take us from here. The pig staying in the Queen City, and Eric Collins informed me of some rivalry tradition I didn't know existed. I didn't know that was possible in the NBA for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea when that trophy was manufactured, but I gotta say I love it. And Spencer, you're a Charlottean. Like I assume at some point tomorrow or perhaps later this week, the pig will be passed around throughout the city, like the Stanley Cup, and
Right, right.
everyone in the 704 area code will get to spend, a day doing whatever they want with the pig. I just assume it's sort of one of those things. I live in Raleigh, not Charlotte, so I don't think I'm going to make the trip down there. But I hope you and your family, and Richie and his family, who he's in the background producing tonight. I hope you guys really just have a great time with the pig trophy. The barbecue rivalry or whatever they were calling it. But yeah, big win for the Hornets tonight. And again, who knew they didn't even need to win the East in-season tournament to claim a little in-season hardware too.
Well, I certainly hope you're right. I certainly hope I get a little time with the pig tomorrow, and Richie and I will convene about our plans for the parade. But no, a really, really good win for the Hornets tonight. Again, a game that felt depressing at times, felt exhilarating at times. My goodness, there were some young players for the Hornets that really stepped up tonight. And I don't know, BG. I figured that's where we would start here. Let's just start with Mark Williams. I just felt like he was kind of the headline for the Hornets tonight. Let me pull up his stat line here. Mark Williams, 30 minutes tonight, 13 points, 15 rebounds, 3 steals, 1 assist, 1 block, plus 19. That's a team high for the Hornets. Uh, I really thought he only takes 6 field goal attempts, which isn't like super surprising, but the impact that he made on this game from just like a pure winning standpoint, I thought was very, very impressive. And I expected a big season out of Mark Williams, but I will say, just judging off the eye test tonight, he looked borderline dominant in that game. Like he changed the way Atlanta ran their offense. Um, I think he flipped how Charlotte could run their offense with his just presence that he was able to consistently put on the rim, regardless of the offensive scheme at times. But I couldn't be more impressed. I think that we may be ahead of schedule here. Am I getting over my skis?
No, because you and I have talked about this, Spencer, and certainly we've talked about it with Richie and Lee on the pod as well. Like Mark played so well down the stretch for Charlotte that like what he's doing now shouldn't really be that surprising. But he is just such a power at the rim. He's such a force at the rim on both sides. Like we can start with the offense if you want. He is this team's best source of rim pressure right now. Like they don't really quite have it in like the guard or wing room, in terms of just like a guy that's gonna, run 50 pick and rolls and get to the rim on half those possessions or whatever. Like Williams is the guy they really need to like get downhill, drag extra defenders in. And he made some plays on the short roll tonight. Had like kind of a got fouled on one in the first half, and then had another one where he on the short roll. I think he hit Brandon Miller for a cut layup coming out of the corner. Um, he was 3 putback finishes tonight, 4 or 5 shooting at the rim, and then the one shot he had from outside of the restricted area was that sort of like short roll runner that he made in the first half. So he was awesome, and we've talked about this with like for Williams, he like seeing it. Charlotte hasn't had like an above the rim like really physical center since probably like Dwight Howard in 2017, 2018. But like these guys could just not be more different in terms of like their willingness to screen and dive. You know what I mean? And like
Like,
Williams is happy to just constantly be humming, screening, and then trying to mash guys on the offensive glass. You don't need to feed him. I mean, did he have one post up touch tonight? You know, like that's something they will throw in from time to time, but you just don't need to give this guy a handful of like token post up touches to get him humming. Like he's looking to like close down the paint and
yeah.
screen and dive and be a pressure point on the rim on offense right from the tip. And then but before we switch to defense, just any thoughts on Williams offensively tonight, Spencer? Additionally.
I mean, you're right. I don't really think he had a true post up in the sense that we think about it traditionally, but those just when Atlanta would get mismatched, he would pin somebody
Mm-hmm.
up the line, right? And you throw that little lob, and Richards does that a lot too.
Yep.
So I kind
Yep.
of think that's the way Charlotte's bigs really get rim pressure outside of a lob running to the rim off a pick and roll. But I mean, offensively, I would just say my biggest takeaway with Mark Williams, especially offensively, but I also think this relates defensively. The game doesn't seem too fast for him, and
Mm-hmm.
that seems rare to me for a big, who especially a big. And I know you're asking me an offensive question, but especially a big that has to kind of be the defensive anchor, and he was tonight. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just he's able to process, react, and be impactful on an NBA level already. And that's I don't know. I find that most impressive about Mark Williams. And that I mean again that relates offensively too.
Yeah. Again, Charlotte wins 116-110 tonight. And Williams was awesome. Mostly, no surprise, mostly playing pick and roll drop coverage tonight. And I thought Charlotte did a nice job um sort of pushing DeJounte Murray and Trae Young, who both had really tough shooting nights tonight. Thought they did a nice job forcing those guys to settle for pull up, off dribble jumpers, which those guys can do, but they're not like that's not what they do best.
Yeah.
Trae Young, 23 points tonight, but on 26 true shot attempts. DeJounte Murray, 11 points tonight, but on 17 true shot attempts. Murray was 1 of 4 at the rim. Trae Young, 0 of 2 at the rim. And I thought Williams early in the first half did a really, really nice job just like closing down the paint and just being a not just like a deterrent, but just a guy that was totally closed off the rim to
Yeah.
Atlanta in the first half with his activity, his length, his ground coverage. Like he's special, right? In terms of like what he can do with that. And there was maybe only one time sort of like charting this game and taking notes while it was going on live where I thought he like got off of his feet early on a pump fake. And it was sort of a tough play. Like it was pick and roll, drop coverage in the second half, and either may have been Bogdanovich, but it was one of Bogdanovich, Murray, or Trey. Ended up hitting like a Kongu or Capello for a little like drop off right at the front of the rim after Williams got in the air. But like that was maybe the one time he took like a little bit of bait, and it really wasn't even
Hmm.
that bad. Like this guy, and I mean, I think I think he's a really nice fit for Steve Clifford schematically, and in terms of just like getting in with a defensive minded coach that definitely sees the defense being built from the center out. And so just I don't know, it's a good landing spot for Williams. And I just think like if he continues to play like that refined in terms of like his positioning with drop coverage, his discipline, not going for pump fakes and trying to block literally everything and being fine with like deterring shots, go using verticality, using stuff like that to frustrate and discourage an opposing offense. Like he can have a massive impact, and like the blocks will just come by virtue of
Yeah.
him being enormous and like always at the rim. And like tonight, look, man, the Hawks are a good offensive team. They've got 2 all-star guards. They've got a great head coach in Quinn Snyder. And Spencer, you said at the top, like they were trying to look for other stuff offensively just because like pick and roll, get downhill, get to the rim just like wasn't working. You could see
Yeah.
Trey Young settling. You could see him immediately mean, he was in mid-season form tonight, just trying to like grift fouls. And he certainly got a few of them. But like outside of Jalen Johnson, his slashing, like
What a game.
Atlanta, he was great tonight. Looks like the Hawks have another like nice young player on the horizon here. But other than that, like Mark was just awesome tonight, closing down the paint, and that takes nothing away from his offense, which was like equally impactful. And just he's a really, really nice young, like true center prospect that the Hornets have, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah, the only thing I would add, I mean, all Will said, his discipline on defense was very, very impressive, I thought, what you were touching on. The more Mark Williams is able to process quickly, like, who's on my weak side? Is it Terry Rozier? Okay, I got to really stay on my feet. I got to use my length. Like, I can't take chances because that lob gets over my head. There's no real help side on the back, right? Is Brandon Miller on my weak side? Okay, now I can get a little bit more, feisty with blocking shots and taking more chances. So that the quarterback of the defense, from that perspective, if he starts to process that thing, like where is my personnel on the floor, it's going to make him even more impactful and even more strategic in where he can take chances and blocking shots. But I mean, that's all nitpicking at this point. I could not be more impressed, and it really looks like the Hornets nailed a lottery pick like they haven't in a while. I mean, LaMelo obviously picking him 3, but like in terms of picking in that 8 to 14 range, right? Like Mark Williams seems like a steal. So anything else on him before we transition?
We'll just say it's exciting to know that like there are like other levels for him to get to defensively. Like he's sort of just scratching the surface in terms of like, game flow processing. And then we should talk about the, PJ Washington at some point because he was really good tonight. But just like the fit with PJ and Mark Williams is really, really nice. And we can get into that. But also there were times tonight when Williams was playing with JT Thor. And all of a sudden Charlotte has so much like size and length at the rim defensively. And Thor is like a very active, like as that weak side guy that you were just talking about. Thor can really like, and he's willing to crash down and then close back out. I think he created.
He can get over and make a difference quickly.
Yeah, I think he caused a turnover, Sadiq Bey, like a travel in the fourth quarter because like he compressed in and then closed back out. Bey didn't have the shot, tried to go off the dribble, which he's not great at, and ended up traveling with the ball. So. We may not get a lot of time to talk about Thor tonight, but I thought like he and Williams together, just a lot of length defensively. And those guys like to be active at the rim. That's a carryover from late last season to the start of this year.
Yeah. Yep. No, I totally agree. Thor leaves a lot to be desired offensively. It would be nice if he could hit one corner 3 a game, but he really, you're right. Like he does add that thing that you just can't really see with your eye necessarily unless you rewind the tape, and you're not going to see on paper in terms of just giving the Hornets defense, especially their weak side defense, gap defense, a little bit more zest. All right, well let's go to where should we go here? Yeah, let's go to PJ. You brought PJ up. I mean, look, he had one of these games in the preseason where you're just like, whoa. It's one of those quick glimpses where he was 12 of 18 from the field tonight. I want to say in the preseason, he had like a 13-20 game. He had more than 25 points in that game, but his middle of like him attacking from, 2 steps from the foul line all the way to the rim right now is way, way, way different than we've seen from this guy in the past. And I thought that, Atlanta had they went to the zone at least 1 or 2 possessions late in the game. It might have been more than that, but I can remember a specific possession, and I think LaMelo got him the ball into the middle of the floor where Trey and just bulldozed him and punched it. But PJ's decisiveness in the middle of the floor right now, attacking the rim, is just a different dude to me, and that's really, really encouraging. I mean, the 1 of 6 from 3-pointer, like whatever. We know PJ's probably going to shoot 34, 35%.
He's a good shooter.
Games.
Yeah, he's a good shooter. He's a good volume 3-point shooter. Like he's going to be fine from out there.
Right, but it's just like you watch his decisiveness when with the ball, even if he doesn't have a mismatch, even if it's DeAndre Hunter on him, like he's going through people's chest right now and getting to the rim, and didn't get to the free throw line tonight. But I think that's a little misleading. I thought thought he probably did get fouled a few times, and as as aggressive as he was from the middle of the floor tonight with the ball, um, it's just huge for this team, BG, because this team does not have enough ball handlers to touch the paint
Mhm.
and get to the rim. And if PJ can be this aggressive, it's gonna get this offense to what 15 to 20th. If they max out everything. I mean, but seriously, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it,
no,
it
I'm
kind of
right there
has to
with
be
you.
that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, totally. I mean, he is one of the things we've talked about with PJ a lot over the years is not just the defensive flashes. It's not just like the pick and pop 3-point shooting. His ability to play a small ball five, which he did often his first 3 years in the league, and really doesn't do much under Steve Clifford now. But has been his ability to connect, and that comes in a lot of different ways. Like sometimes that's a short roll pass kicking out to a shooter after an opposing defense puts two on the ball. Sometimes that's a short roll lob, um, where he catches the ball in a pocket of space and has to make a quick decision, whether it's a lob pass to the center in the dunker spot, it's a runner, or it's a kick out for an open three. And PJ has just gotten so good at like that short roll decision making. And I think he's one of the best in the league at doing it when someone's already in the dunker spot. Like the lane is congested often when he catches the ball in the short roll because usually it's Mark Williams. In years past, it's been, last year it was Mason Plumlee. Sometimes it's Richards. And like he's usually never seeing like a clean lane. Because again, there's usually a 7-footer there waiting for him. And he's so good at like the quick lob pass, he'll jump in the air, he'll get the center to leave, and then he'll like sort of like lay a like kind of like a wraparound sort of like drop off pass to the center in the dunker spot. And that playmaking, that like connective playmaking extends to when he catches the ball like on a pick and pop or a second side touch against a scrambled or bent defense. Like as you were just highlighting, Spencer, like he's willing to catch it and go. Like he will get
Hmm.
into the paint and look to get downhill and
Doesn't waste time. Yep.
force the defense to make one more rotation, one more decision. And like if they don't, then he's just gonna hit the runner at an incredibly high rate. And not only like has he gotten we've highlighted this plenty over the last season plus, like how good he's gotten with that runner. He's so good. He's got the running back little stiff arm move that he uses often to like when he does have a defender on his hip or in front of him. He's so good at sort of like gathering the ball with his right hand, taking his left arm or his left shoulder and using that to either a subtle push or like he'll dip his shoulder to create a little bit of separation, and he ends up getting these like really clean looks in the middle of the lane, and he's wide open because he's able to create separation in
Yep.
these tough spots where it shouldn't be like easy to do so. And then by that point, that's his best shot. That little like runner push shot that he's gotten so good, the shooting touch. So just very very impressed with PJ. 11 of 12 shooting on twos tonight. It's insane. And I mean, he was 5 of 6 at the rim, 5 of 5 perfect from 4 to 14 feet, and 1 of 1 from 14 to 3-point range. So he was 6 of 6 in the mid range tonight and 5 of 6 at the rim. Not worried at all about the 3-point shooting. Like we know he's
No.
a big time volume, high 30%, shooter that can do it off of relocation and pick and pops. And those pick and pops, when they get into double drag action or they get into any kind of like double high screen roll possession where it's Gordon Hayward, LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Teo Maldon, whomever it is, and Mark sets the first pick and dives, and PJ either sets the second pick and he pops out or he slips. That's such a great action for them, and it's so simple. But just like Mark is going to draw a crowd diving to the rim, PJ can pop into space, and all of a sudden, like you've got a little bit of advantage. You can throw it to PJ and allow him to build that advantage either with a pick and pop three. He can drive the closeout, get to the runner, or maybe throw a lob to Mark.
Yeah.
So that's just simple stuff, but those guys fit really, really well. It's a very clean, nice combination for Charlotte at the 4-5 spot.
To piggyback off what you said too, 12 of 17 the Hornets were from that short mid-range area, according to Cleaning the Glass. Tonight, that's 4 feet to 14 feet. I think you said PJ was 5 of 5 or 5 of 6.
He was 5 of 5.
5 of 5. So
yeah,
and I think Rozier I thought was really good in that range tonight. But that's just refreshing for Charlotte's offense. Like Atlanta was really getting out in the passing lanes and on the ball, and it seems like that's the way they want to play this year. It might have been a little schematic to their opponent tonight, but for Charlotte to get that deep towards the rim and be that efficient close to the rim, really, really encouraging. Let's get to a listener question here real quick. This is Matt Strand. His question is, how long has it been since the center position was actually viewed as a strength and not a weakness? I could be wrong here, BG, because I saw this question. I gave it a little thought while you were talking, but has it been Al Jefferson? Am I missing someone?
Like, unless it was
like Al Jefferson wasn't a defensive stalwart, but I wouldn't call that position a weakness. Then I don't.
I mean, maybe Zeller. Like, there were times when
Zeller
was like, I mean, but true. It's different, right? Because Zeller's thing was that he was just like a really high energy, industrious, pick and roll guy for Kemba. He was really good at angles.
Perfect partner.
Yeah. I mean, those guys were really good together. Make all the jokes you want, but he was like a screen assist guy. In the early days of NBA.com tracking that metric, but Zeller wasn't everyone's cup of tea. I think we on this pod were pretty fond of him, but I feel like that was the 16-17 season, which was Kemba's first All-Star year. They were back end of Eastern Conference playoff contention until the middle of the season when Zeller went down. And then all of a sudden it was Roy Hibbert and Frank Kaminsky having to play the 5, and things fell apart pretty quickly. But that roster was flawed in more ways than just the center room and the depth behind Cody Zeller. But yeah, it's been a long time that they've had a guy like Williams with his upside and quality backup too, like Richards.
All right, let's stay on the youngsters because that seems to be the good trend. A lot of good things to say here. Brandon Miller tonight. It felt like it was quiet, slow out of the gates, not surprising. And in the second half, boy, did he hit some big shots. You text me or text the BuzzBeat group tonight. I mean, after that second big 3 he hit, I thought the most impressive one he hit all night was the step back at the end of the shot clock.
Nasty.
Just smooth, very natural, just like he was playing any other basketball game, which is okay. Yep, that's it. 6'7" wing who can do that kind of stuff supernaturally in a tense spot. That's that's the real skill set. We're tapping into it there. But BG, I thought he had some opportunities on the ball tonight in pick and roll situations as kind of the secondary ball handler, especially when he wasn't sharing the floor with LaMelo and he was out there with Rozier, which I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I do feel like he played with Rozier quite a bit tonight is the true too. I was impressed. You could tell he was nervous early in the game, but he really settled in nicely. 13 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 of 9 from the field, 3 of 7 from behind the arc. Really couldn't ask for a better opening night performance from the rookie. I was very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, everything for him was at the rim, or in terms of his usage was at the rim or a 3. He had 2 nice stashed in the right corner cutting dunks. Another one when LaMelo, Okongwu was at the level guarding pick and roll for Atlanta. LaMelo split it, probably one of his best drives he had all night. He split it, got down the hill. Atlanta's defense collapsed just enough, and Miller made a nice aggressive read to not just like stay spotted up in the corner, but to crash in and catch a lob. And he got the two rim finishes he had tonight were both off of those corner cuts. But yeah, the relocation three that he hit, the second one was huge. And what was that, like Rozier pick and roll, and then Miller sort of like shaked up, little shake action coming from like the left wing to the top of the key. Atlanta
Just
botched. Yeah, exactly. Atlanta botched the rotation. I'm not sure. There's a good chance it was Trae Young. Like, who knows? But Miller was wide open, but he stepped right into it and he trained it. And yeah, the step back little like shot fake, one dribble, sidestep deeper into the corner. I mean, that's a really tough shot. That's a really, really tough shot. And I just thought Miller, like, he played well in preseason. And I thought it carried over tonight in his first regular season game as a pro. There's more ways they can use him. I mean, they really had him in like a cutter, secondary catch and shoot role. We saw some in the preseason, them getting him like a little bit more involved, getting him in dribble, like, scripted dribble handoff actions to try to get him, catch and shoots or into the second side pick and roll actions. So we could see more of that. They used him as like a ghost screener. I think that was when he got some of his like above the break 3-point attempts off the catch, him slipping, guard pick and rolls with LaMelo or Rozier. Like, that action's going to be there, all season, all year for him. That's good stuff. My thought would be, like, as far as his pick and roll activity tonight, I'd love, and I understand why he was sort of like playing the game he did, but I'd love to see him force the issue a little bit more at times this year. There were probably, I don't know, probably like 2 or 3 pick and roll possessions, and I'm nitpicking here obviously, but like where he dribbled off the screen, took 1 or 2 dribbles, and then was just like looking to make the first pass, as opposed to like sort of exploring the space a little bit more. But hopefully that will come. Like, that's part of that should be part of the package for him, is to see what he can do with that, how much he can grow in terms of that. And I did like to, in the second half, Steve Clifford, like after a timeout, ran like a little kind of like quick hitter pistol action between LaMelo and Miller that then had Miller go into pick and roll with Nick Richards. And Miller was just like a half second too late on throwing the pass to Richards. Like, it should have been a dunk. And like, it just, again, I'd love something to monitor, because it's not, some games will probably be better than others. Like, it'll be up and down this year, but just like seeing the processing like quicken and improve and just like smooth out a little bit. And at times too, just like watching him take chances a little bit more in the pick and roll is something that I would like to monitor with him as far as like that type of activity goes.
Yeah, and I think he's going to get a lot of chances this year because the Hornets are just starved for ball handling, right?
Yeah.
And so, Richie, thank you. I did have this in my notes. He just makes a list for us here. 34 assists for the Hornets tonight. That's 34 assists on 43 made field goals. That's very, very good. Very, very good indeed. Yeah, I mean, I just thought the ball moved a lot. And I'll use this as a transition into kind of our next topic here, BG. LaMelo leads the team with 10 assists. He only had 3 turnovers. He made some awesome passes and finds there, and especially in the second half when they were needed, and really in the first half too. I mean, when he didn't have it going offensively, felt like there was a lot of over dribbling. Shots not falling. But yes, this team understands that they don't have a lot of people they don't have a lot of ball handlers that can put the ball on the floor and touch the paint quickly. And so the ball has to get side to side often, like very, very often. And so I was impressed. I mean, 34 assists on 43 made field goals is like, that's as good as you're going to find in the league. So, all right, BG, LaMelo. I was surprised to see that game tonight. I'm trying to be nice here. I think what I'm most disappointed about with LaMelo is, like, I feel like I'm watching the same guy I've watched for Certainly the same guy I saw last season, but I am starting to. I'm workshopping this idea. It's one game, so I don't want to get over my head here, but I am starting to worry he's not a lead ball handler. Like he would be better, like maybe as a guy whose first name starts with an S and his last name starts with
Ye-
an H.
Yeah.
Like I am starting to worry that because all his offensive production tonight came off of catch and shoot threes, literally 100% of it,
Yep.
and he is pretty proficient there. But him as a off the dribble shooter and him as a just it's not heliocentric, but you understand what I'm saying. Him as like
Yeah.
your offensive engine. I'm just starting to wonder, like, is that really his role in the NBA? Because I'm not sure it is.
I mean, how much do we talk about this leading into the
I know
draft this summer?
it's game
It's
one.
like,
Like, yeah, I mean,
you
I don't
know,
want to like freak
it's
anybody
it's
out here, but
it's like in like Miller played great tonight, and I mean I think everyone on this pod likes him as a prospect, but it was like the pitch for Scoot in Charlotte was that like it would move Lamelo to more off the ball. And like that
yeah,
wouldn't be a bad thing because he's a 41% career catch and shoot 3-point shooter with range. And some of his best passing and best playmaking
comes
comes in
off second
yeah,
action. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Scrambles, second
Yep.
action, like defense is bent. Like, yeah, I mean, the people who were like didn't think Scoot and LaMelo made sense together were like either dead right in terms of like, oh, this down the line, this is gonna be a problem, like in terms of personalities, or there's only one ball or whatever. To be honest, like I see that being not being an issue with LaMelo because like what he does best is pass the ball, but um, like unless you were just unless you would have been absolutely correct that just like um non-basketball reasons were going to cause it to like not work out because there's got to be if you think there's got to be like some sort of like organizational pecking order and there's a hierarchy and that's going to cause friction, like, and who knows, like we'll never know, but like in terms of just like how those two guys would have fit if you didn't understand how that could have worked, like you were overthinking it way too much,
Yeah.
like way too much. In part because like Scoot is also good without the basketball too. Like he does a lot of good stuff, and there's so many ways you could have like synced those guys together when they're on the court, and obviously you could have staggered them, and would have allowed you to do all of their kinds of stuff with your lineups and stuff. But yeah, like that's the thing that like ultimately, I still believe that this is going to be the case for Charlotte, like one way or the other, unless like Miller absolutely hits like the 99th percentile in terms of like his outcomes. Um, they're going to have to get another ball handler at some point in time.
Yeah.
Like they're just going to have to, like, if they're going to build a 50-win team with LaMelo as like one of the like two or three best guys, as much as like Williams is nice to be like a screen dive guy that can like put like heat up the rim a little bit because of his role, his like dive gravity, like ultimately you need a guy that can like get you buckets in the mid range and get to the rim, which is like literally the things that Scoot Henderson does best. Like
Yeah.
that was the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Like they literally had
It
the
was the
opportunity to,
point.
like they could have just pushed the button and done it. And like I don't know, like we're gonna have plenty of time to like, we've already spent probably too much time on an opening night pod like relitigating that, and there will be plenty of time this season and going forward. And Miller looked great tonight, so like I
Yeah.
don't want to like get into it too much, but like if like in the context of like LaMelo, it's like yes, at some point in time they're gonna need to get another ball handler in here, and like their best chance to get one with star potential was the draft this summer.
Yeah.
And when they had the number 2 pick in a draft that featured Scoot Henderson as the second best overall prospect. But that's not
Well,
the move they made.
in the context of tonight and this season, I just wonder what kind of adjustments, if any, Clifford this team will make to give some of the offensive utilization duties to Gordon Hayward or Brandon Miller or Terry Rozier earlier in the game earlier in shot clocks because the Hornets can't afford, and they won't be every single night. They're not going to be stuck. Their offense is not going to be stuck in mud every single night with LaMelo being, the lead ball handler, setting up the offense when they can't play in transition. But tonight it was hard to watch. It was the first half was hard to watch offensively, and you could tell LaMelo was not confident. You could tell he was settling. He was taking those really weird, random, terrible shots. Not getting. I mean, he couldn't go past Trae Young. He couldn't go through Trae Young, and it's just that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, we have what we have on the roster, but if we're just gonna let LaMelo cook in the half court with the starting unit, just because those are the guys we have out there, like this team's not obviously not built to dig out of the hole like they did tonight. But
Yeah.
boy, he's yeah. So the personnel's not perfect for LaMelo. That just is what it is.
Yeah.
But we talked about this preseason. How does Gordon Hayward act as the quarterback from the top of the floor more often? How does because I really thought Rozier, he wasn't perfect tonight. No, but this offense got to a point where Rozier's like, I got to get downhill. I got to get downhill.
Yeah.
And he turned it
Yeah.
over some, but he
Yeah.
also changed the flow of the offense. And he also made Atlanta react to the ball hitting the floor and getting to the paint, which is very needed. So I don't know. It's going to be a hard coaching adjustment for Clifford. And LaMelo he got off to a bad start. It's game one. We're not going to make too much of one game, but I was surprised. I was surprised that that's the performance we got tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the heliocentric possibilities with like LaMelo, like even if that stuff was at any point in time sort of like realistic, like I think by this point it's pretty much like it's sailed. The only two things that could like change that would be some sort of like athletic growth that we haven't, like he just gains 25 pounds of muscle and all of a sudden like he can, if you put Trae Young on him, he's just going to back him down. Like Luka is not like an elite, like bursty athlete, but Luka is huge and strong and like he can just bulldoze people. Gets to his, he just totally he by himself takes your scheme and he destroys it because like him running a pick and roll, unless you just blitz him and get the ball out of his hands, he can get to his spots every time. And obviously if you blitz him and get the ball out of his hands, he's creating an advantage anyways. And like, I think the one other thing would be, and this is like, actually I've said this on here before, we've talked about it, like, and I actually think Spencer was when I filled in for you with the like Nate Duncan season preview last year with Dunked On, and the one thing Nate and I talked about was like if somehow LaMelo became a like high 30% shooter on pull-ups, like that's the one other thing because like for his career he's been like low 30s, pretty like middling efficiency on like decent but not like insane volume. Like if he could actually like all of a sudden like geek out defenses and sort of like force them to not be able to like dip under screens as much, like that type of stuff. And
now
like
he doesn't need a quick burst.
Exactly. Exactly. He could just turn the corner more, and like obviously he's so crafty, you could flip the screen and get into a handoff. Right. Like there's just so many ways you could use that to counter it. But like what we're describing is him making like he's a very good shooter, but would be like him making a like pretty substantial leap as like a pull-up shooter. It's very hard to go from like low 30s on like decent but not great volume to like and I'm not saying like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard type stuff either. Those guys are like basically outliers, but a level or two above where he is now, and then all of a sudden maybe you can shift coverages a little bit, but short of like something that we just haven't seen yet, it's hard to imagine him just like immediately making like a growth in terms of like half court offensive engine, unless Charlotte was to all of a sudden like put better talent around him, and then that would change the math too, right?
Sure. Well, remains to be seen. A few more thoughts here. Number one, I would like to be spared of any kind of LaMelo Ball, Theo Maldone lineups for the foreseeable future. I know that's not much of an option with with the state of the roster right now,
Oh boy.
in
Yeah.
the Frankie Smokes injury. But I will say, I do think Ish Smith, certainly not ideal defensively, but just his ability to at least put the ball on the floor and push the tempo and let LaMelo just let him be more of a trailer. Like I would like
Mhm.
if I were Clifford, I would at least like try that for 5 to 6 to 7 minutes a game and just see how it goes. Like I'm not sure it wouldn't be more productive than a Maldone, Lamelo backcourt. But and then the other thing is, BG, I got really excited for 45 seconds late in the first half when Nick
NSJ
Smith
baby.
Jr. checked in. And I was like, oh boy, we're already going deep into the bullpen, and this is game one of the first half. But I got really excited, and then that experiment ended quickly. But yeah, so the backcourt is going to be the weakness of this team this year. There's zero question and doubt about that.
It is a bummer that I mean, I like every injury you could say in the backcourt room is like a pretty significant bummer because like all of those guys, if one of them were healthy,
Hmm.
they would be like
Yeah,
getting like at least like rotation minutes. Um, at the moment, I mean, say what you will about Book Night, but I think what Bryce McGowan's was doing late in the season, he can cut, he can catch and go. He can run a second side pick and roll, and just like I mean, who knows when we'll see Cody Martin?
yeah. I
They
mean,
could,
Cody Martin would really, really, really help
yeah,
this equation.
yep. And like, I mean, I thought the Frank Ntilikina offensive experiment in the preseason was not was like a little perplexing, but obviously like he's a very good point of attack defender. Like he could really help you out there. And they certainly played LaMelo and Ntilikina together in the preseason. I think with the hopes of sort of like, well, we got another ball handler out here, and that
Mhm.
could allow us to sort of like, yeah, like space LaMelo at times and get him into some of these like catch and go or catch and shoot situations too. But yeah, like it's tough that all of those injuries are piled up, really at the sort of like, yeah, backup point guard or like, shooting guard roles right now. Because
Yeah.
any of those dudes would be able to help out. And it does stink for guys like Book Knight and McGowan's that are like young rookie contracts trying to make a spot in the league. Like there's an opportunity there. They're just like not healthy enough to actually like try to seize on it. So you're right. I think Ish Smith will. I think he can help. It's, laugh all you want, but like he's really
In the
fast.
interim,
He's really fast with the basketball in his hands, man.
it's ridiculous. Yes, and
Yeah.
if you've been a Hornets fan for extended time, you remember. I mean, he made a difference here in Charlotte just a few years ago. Um, BG, anything else from? I think that pretty much wraps up what I had for this game. Anything
Mhm.
else on this game? And I just kind of wanted to take a quick glance at the upcoming schedule for Charlotte because I think there's an opportunity for them to get out to a pretty good start.
Just the last thing, and I know we've got a plug for this guy that we need to get to towards the right before you and I wrap up and Richie sort of like takes over. But um, I thought Gordon Hayward, like, nothing spectacular, but just in the first half when he got subbed out and things were going sideways with the offense, all of my notes are like, where's PJ? Like, can we get Gordon back in the game? Like, when Steve
Yep.
gonna put him back in the game? Like, when just I think everyone on this podcast is always the like the running theory has been like when this guy is healthy, he's good, he stabilizes the offense, and like I mean that's going to be true again this year. They need it if they're gonna try to get a playoff spot. They need this guy to play a lot of games for them because he's just a really important piece for them in terms of half court offense output.
Could not agree more. And thought he looked good tonight. I mean, thought he
Mhm.
looked athletic. He definitely looks healthy. So yeah, nothing to add there. Couldn't agree more.
Cool.
Um, well, to take us out here, let's just get a quick glance on the Hornets next few weeks. When I first looked at this schedule when it came out, I thought, huh, if Charlotte, in these first three home games, they open with back to back to back home games. they can get out 2-1 or even 3-0, they really have an opportunity to get ahead of the game. Their next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games: host Detroit Friday night, at home against Brooklyn, at Houston, at Indiana, at Dallas, home versus Washington, go to Washington. I would say that they're going to be favored in, of those 7 games, at least 4.
Yeah.
Maybe not at Houston, but anyways, let's say 3.5, just to split the atom. Like, there is a chance, if Charlotte can build momentum here earlier, they can get out to a good start on this season before the schedule starts to beef up. And I look, you know, do we need another lottery pick and another prospect on this roster that can make a difference? Of course we do. You know, this is still a young roster, but for the sake of let's all be Hornets fans earlier in the season, I don't think it's inconceivable that this team can get out to a 6-2, 5-3 start.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that were to be the case, it would at least create some intrigue. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to at least bring that to the surface.
Yeah, I'm having deja vu with this conversation. Like this is all over again. Two quick thoughts on two quick items on these games we're mentioning. That second Washington game,
Mhm.
that is the Hornets' first like in-season tournament game. So just a little bit of business with that. And I will say the Brooklyn game, which is next Monday, I believe.
Yep.
I think the Nets are going to be an awesome defensive team this year. I love their personnel: Dennis Smith Jr., Nick Claxton, Michael Bridges, Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal. Like they've just got tons of guys on that side of the court. That feels like a game where like the half-court offense for the Hornets, they just better shoot threes really well in that game, or it seems like that's going to turn into a rock fight. But certainly some teams I'm interested in seeing. Houston, Indiana, especially, sort of like stand out on that list that I'll be looking forward to.
Good stuff, BG. Well, look, it was a really fun opening night. I will say this about the Hornets: they rarely disappoint on opening night. I really can't remember an opening night game, especially at home, that didn't come down to the damn wire, as this one did too. And a fun win, and we will see where it goes from here. I mean, look, we're 1-0. We got a really bad LaMelo game. There are reasons to be optimistic, especially when you consider this roster still has room to get healthy, and hopefully sooner rather than later. All right, BG, good stuff tonight. We will talk soon. Last thing, almost forgot this. Um, Richie had an exclusive interview with Gordon Hayward after a practice, I think late last week. So that will be in this episode as well. So make sure that you give that a listen. Some really good intel there. Gordon Hayward, you're 14, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah,
some
crazy.
crazy stuff. So and again, look great tonight. So make sure you give that a listen as well. And Richie, thanks for everything you're doing on the back end, and congrats on the new baby. By the way, if you want to drop Richie a note on Twitter and say congrats for the new one, please do that. All right, for Spencer, that's BG.